Hey everyone, today we're diving into the buzz around Devin AI claiming to be the world's first software engineer. I've been getting a lot of messages from people asking if they need to stop studying computer science or if software engineering is a dead end. Is AI going to replace all software engineers in the near future? And people have been sending me an interview of Jensen Huang who said software engineering is dead. As promised, I do have a lot of thoughts around this, so let's see if Devin is really a revolution or is it just a clever marketing gimmick. So I want to talk about 5 points that I want you to think about when you come across news articles like this so you can make better informed decisions about your future and maybe don't freak out as much. So here we go. Why I'm not entirely sold on Devin. Number 1 is the limited benchmarks that they presented. Passing an interview or getting some contract work done on Upwork doesn't always mean someone is really good at coding. Sometimes it just shows how well they can talk about coding in an interview. Devin's ability to pass interviews doesn't necessarily reflect how good Devin actually is at coding. If anything, it only proves how flawed or dumb the interview process is rather than how good Devin is at coding. So I don't know if there is a way to really accurately measure how good Devin's coding skill is because of the subjectivity of software engineering work. You might think that software engineering work can be quantified really easily, but even the metrics that we use are pretty subjective. And I talk extensively about this in my coaching program, which focuses more on how to quantify your work and promote your work because of the subjective nature. You can check out my courses if you're interested in talking more about that. I think I'm going to give you a 10% discount code in the description, so claim that 10% discount code. But back to my list, number 2 is the nature of contracting work. Oftentimes the challenges with the contracting work is not the work itself, but is that the scope is not that clear. Here's a little story about me. When I was 22, I left my full-time job at IBM and I tried living the nomadic lifestyle, jumping from contract to contract for a couple of years. And contracting jobs are quite different from regular full-time jobs. So in real-world companies, you usually don't start a project from scratch almost never unless you're working for a pre-seed startup that doesn't even have an MVP, right? So instead, you often have to go figure out how to work with the existing code base that's already there. And one thing that I often have to remind new engineers or junior engineers is that they always want to start projects from scratch because that's just so much easier. But in the real world, that's just not how it's going to work. And you're more likely going to have to deal with old archaic dinosaur code. And there are usually reasons why things are done the way they are in these older code. There is a bit of a challenge and a learning curve to learning all of the ins and outs of existing code base, which is not very straightforward. My guess is that if we were to place Devin in a real company's code base like Facebook or Meta that I used to work at, there's just not enough evidence to confidently support that Devin will succeed in a more complex environment like that. Okay, number 3 is that writing code is the easiest part of being a software engineer. Yeah, sure, Devin can compare different options for building websites and apps, which is useful, but is it amazing or groundbreaking? I don't really think so. It seems that Devin is able to do some decent work, or at least able to produce enough decent work for Cognition to be able to select a few videos to highlight for marketing campaigns. But in the eyes of anyone who knows anything about software engineering, these videos are not very impressive. I've been seeing even YouTubers saying that the future of engineering is going to change completely because of Devin. All engineers are gonna become like managers who oversee projects only. Here's the news flash. Guess what staff engineers spend the bulk of their time working on? Architecture, producing spec docs, mentoring other engineers, leadership discussions, etc., etc. It's common for senior staff engineers to not do much coding at all. Working on non-technical work has always been a big part of being a senior engineer. So the more experience you have, the less coding you typically do. That's how it always has been. So I don't really see how Devin is going to change anything for senior engineers. Number 4 is the marketing gimmick that I mentioned earlier. This honestly really goes against every grain of what I learned through WhatsApp. If you're new here, I was the 19th engineer at WhatsApp. Back then, we kept our scaling efforts really private. We didn't really talk about our monthly active users publicly. If your product is really genuinely good, why would you bombard people with marketing videos instead of just releasing your product? It's just not how an engineer would usually operate. There are already multiple videos dissecting every second of the marketing footage, so I'm not gonna delve into too much detail, but the gist is that Cognition posted a series of marketing videos, and first off, none of these demos were live. They were pre-recorded and carefully edited. Okay, now this one I do want to talk about a little bit. Devin can autonomously find and fix bugs in Codebase. Devin helps Andrew maintain and debug his open source competitive programming book. One thing I want to highlight is how this person is using Devin for debugging. But if you really look at the prompts they're using, incorrect extraction of base powers in log class. A regular person looks at this prompt, do you even know what incorrect extraction of base powers in log class even means? Jensen Huang, who recently suggested that in the future we won't need to know programming. But that's really not entirely true, because so far AI is more like a calculator, right? If you don't know how to do math, how would you know what inputs to give to the calculator? Like, how would you know you have to use add or multiply or division? So similarly, if you don't know programming, how would you know what to ask Devin? Like, another backstory I can tell you, I personally don't find it really enjoyable to collaborate with non-tech people because articulating technical issues is difficult. For example, I was building a website with a product person. When she asked me for changes, she would say stuff like, the website looks a little off. And I'm like, what about it? And she's like, the font is a little off. It was really frustrating because, like, what the is off, right? Like, do you mean you want more padding, a different color, the alignment? Like, what exactly is off? If you were to tell Devin, hey, Devin, something seems a little off. Can you fix it here? Devin would likely be confused. And this is not about anything against non-technical people, but it's just really tough to convey technical specifications and prompts when someone doesn't really understand software engineering. Number 5, don't trust everything you see on Twitter. The lesson here is to take trends with a grain of salt. I don't think AI is about to swoop in and take away all of our jobs anytime soon, at least not in the immediate future. In my previous video, I did talk about exponential growth. So I don't mean you should ignore AI altogether and assume your job is completely secure. Absolutely not. But what I do mean is don't be so easily persuaded by marketing trends. I've seen people panicking and contemplating dropping out of computer science just because of Devin or just because Jensen Huang said that programming is going to be useless in the future. So please don't do that. Honestly, I don't really see a better alternative in terms of industry to join anyways. It's not like other industries are really going to be thriving anyways in the age of AI. So if you want to learn more about the top 5 rising roles and top 5 roles that are going to be disappearing in the future with the changes of AI, check out this video. Otherwise, this is the video that YouTube thinks you should watch next. So I'll see you there.